You're listening to This Week in No Code plus AI, with weekly episodes sharing the latest advancements of AI, plus exclusive interviews with founders using these tools. So without any further ado, let's get started. Welcome to This Week in No Code plus AI. I'm JJ, your host, and we've got a stellar show for you this week. We're featuring Flo, the founder and CEO of Lindy.ai. He'll be sharing insights about building advanced AI agents and automation tools after his impressive journey from Uber engineer to TeamFlow founder, and now leading one of the most innovative AI agent platforms. But first, let's dive into the latest and greatest news from the AI and no-code world. OpenAI is making major moves with their upcoming high-end AI agents, and the pricing might surprise you. They're developing specialized AI assistants ranging from $2,000 to $20,000 per month. These include a high-income knowledge worker agent at $2,000 monthly, a software developer agent for $10,000, and their most advanced PhD-level research agent coming in at $20,000 per month. SoftBank is betting big on this too, committing $3 billion towards these AI agent products. That's a lot of money. Investment towards that, they gotta really believe in this product line. Otherwise, the AI landscape continues to evolve at breakneck speed. Anthropic has made huge waves with the release of Claude 3.7, which features their new extended reasoning capabilities that dramatically improve problem solving and analytical tasks. On top of that, they just closed a massive $6 billion funding round, valuing the company at over $30 billion. A clear sign investors are betting big on their approach to AI safety and capabilities. A recent industry report shows that companies leveraging AI agents are seeing productivity increases of up to 35% in knowledge work environments, while reducing operational costs by nearly 28%. So early results of AI agents are promising, and continued bets from OpenAI and others on AI agents really makes you wonder how far this can go. Otherwise, in the no-code world, WeWeb is seeing an increased surge with releasing their AI copilot, with all of their KPIs jumping by 5x. And speaking of AI builders, we just witnessed a showdown between Henry from Lovable and Brett from Design Joy, who was using Webflow, and Brett ended up taking home the top prize. The contest started with Lovable gaining huge momentum, where within the first 10 minutes, he had something really well put together, but then it began to unravel, and Henry just couldn't get it back on track. Lots of errors, lots of bugs, lots of things just not working, and Brett was able to put together an impressive landing page in Webflow, sealing the victory for Webflow versus Lovable in this 60-minute competition. This contest really highlights where AI builders stand today, in my opinion. They're great at getting you 80% of the way there, but if you don't know how to code, you'll eventually hit roadblocks that are tough to debug. And many builders are bringing the code into platforms like Cursor right now to help debug their code and then bring it back into Lovable and keep on going back and forth until they can finally get something to production. But things like authentication and other things are still really challenging. And it feels like it's still very much a young platform that's not quite production ready. I'm sure they'll get there, but until then, I just recommend using them for prototyping. A lot of users are just kind of happy and mad about their possibilities and then it not being working, etc. So for my own projects, I'm going to stick with Softr for internal tools and simple portals. And then anytime I need to build an MVP, I'm going to stick with Bubble. I mean, I can still build stuff really, really quick with these two platforms. And then for enterprise SaaS, I'm probably looking at WeWeb and Superbase or WeWeb and Zano, things where you just need access to code, flexibility, self-hosting, all that kind of stuff. It opens the doors with that kind of stack. So I like all of those platforms and more. And otherwise, I got some exciting news about my AI agent course. It's finally live, and it was originally planned to be 3 hours, which is now expanded into 8 hours. And I really went into NAN. That module alone is 4 hours. And I start at a very high level, and then I go deep, 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 especially with NAN, showing you how to create all different types of tools for your agents that you can use in many different ways. Plus, I've secured over $200 in free credits for 4 out of the 5 platforms that I teach you in the course. And as a special bonus, I've included the interviews with the CEOs and team members from 5 out of the 5 platforms within each of the modules. So that way, before we teach you the tool, you could hear from the people that have built the tool. Really giving you some good behind the scenes knowledge there. And it's really cool. So whether you're looking to just get started with AI agents or looking to build complex agents for professional use cases, you need to check out that course. Go to nocodealliance.org. Promise, it's a fantastic intro course. It will take you far and generally leave you feeling like you know what you need to know about AI agents, and you could take this step if you want to continue or not. Otherwise, let's welcome our guest to the show. Flo, thank you for joining us. Let's dive into Lindy.ai now.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. Lindy is one of the hottest companies in the AI space, if I say so myself. But there's a great story behind that company. And starting with you, the person that founded it, we love to learn more about you. And then we'll get into Lindy, talk about that, and then maybe the industry at large and where we're going in the future. But first, who are you?
Who am I? Name is Flo. I'm the founder of Lindy. My background, well, I'm French. I've been in the San Francisco Bay Area for 13 years. I was an engineer at Uber for a while. I was a product manager there. I left Uber in 2019, started a startup called Teamflow, which pivoted to Lindy and AI agents before ChatGPT in 2022.
Wow, excellent. And so Teamflow was your first startup, correct?
Yeah.
Were you able to raise money for that company?
Yeah. Yeah, we did raise quite a bit of money for it. It was like a virtual office, and
Okay.
the timing was really good because we funded it right at the moment when the pandemic broke out, which was a coincidence. Teams needed software to collaborate remotely. So we had what I call product COVID fit. Many such cases of startups that were given a fit with like a world that was temporary. I think all the virtual office category was that. Hopin, the virtual events category, I don't know if you recall, was that. Clubhouse was, I think, like the
Oh,
ultimate
yeah.
product COVID fit. So we had
Yes.
product COVID fit. So when COVID went away, it didn't go so well. It wasn't like terrible, like the business is still alive and generating revenue, but like
Mhm.
it wasn't like the rocket ship that we signed up for.
Yeah. What was that transition like from being an engineer to being a founder? A lot of our audience, there may be solo engineers, want to start that business and do something like you've done. Any tips for them in that transition?
Get started ASAP. I regret waiting as long as I did because I knew this was my objective. Get started. I do think there are some similarities
Mhm.
in that I think like building a company is basically designing a system. And so the sort of like system thinking muscle that being an engineer trains you on is very helpful when it comes to building companies. Um, your IDE is now a meeting. That is the way you enact change in the company, especially after you pass a certain size. And it's a bad IDE. It's indeterministic. The debugger lies to you. You ask people, how are you doing? And they're like, great. And 2 days later, they quit on you. It's like, wait, I just asked how you're doing. If I can't inspect the variables, how am I supposed to do this, right? So you learn all these tricks to work with this new tool you have, which is human interactions. But yeah, it's effectively designing a system, except the system, at least for now, is still made of humans, which comes with its own set of challenges.
Yeah, we'll get to that AGI in a bit more later, but let's talk about Lindy.ai now. Do you have any co-founders?
No.
So it's by yourself. Has it always, like your last company were you the single founder as well?
Yeah, I am very vocally anti co-founder.
Okay.
I think both the data and it's congruent with pretty much everyone's anecdotal stories when they have spent long enough in startups. The data does show solo founders are twice as likely to be successful as co-founders. Not to mention you have twice the equity, right? So you have twice
Yeah.
the equity of something, twice as likely to be successful. But it's not about the equity. I like co-founder breakups are like one of the leading causes of startup deaths. So I always tell people you should default to solo founder and only go co-founder if there is someone you couldn't possibly imagine not funding something with,
Mhm.
which is the opposite of what people do.
How much of an advantage do you think it is that you have a technical background, that you know how to code and that you're building a technology company?
Yeah, it is a big qualifier. Yes, absolutely. If you're not technical, maybe you do need a technical co-founder. I will say though, like in the age of AI, being technical is less and less a must-have. It still helps, but
Mhm.
you can go so far now without knowing how to code. Bezos wasn't technical; he didn't know how to code. You can do it. You can do it.
Yeah, I love it. Talking about the early days of Lindy.ai, tell us about like what that was like. What was that first agentic experience you created, or when was that moment where it's like, okay, we just built something that could be really special?
Oh wow! So going all the way back, we built that virtual office, which think of it as like a Zoom for remote teams. And the GPT-3 API came out, and we were all so excited about LLMs and AI. Like I had been looking at them for a long time. Like since GPT-2, I was super excited about LLMs. So it was before ChatGPT, and GPT-3 comes out, and we had a meeting recorder built into our video conferencing app. And so we were like, oh, like what? How can we leverage GPT-3? Let's transcribe the meetings of the meeting recorder and do this thing that everybody does now, which is like summarize the meetings that we record. So we do that. It works okay. Like the context window was a bit too small, and like the model was hallucinating, but it was working. And we had a sales team, and the sales folks come to me and they're like, Flo, like you have no idea. I didn't know. Like salespeople spend a lot of time updating their Salesforce
Hmm.
or like their CRM. Like after every meeting, it's basically stupid data entries. Like I just met with Bob. We talked about X, Y, and Z. That's the next step. Right. But like they do it, it's like 5 or 10 minutes per meeting, and they have a bunch of meetings per day. Basically, they spend like 3 or 4 hours a week
Hmm.
doing this. And they hate it, obviously. Right. And so they come to me and are like, Flo, we spent so much time doing this thing. Can this thing you just built since it's AI, can you do it for us? And so at first we're like, sure, let's just hard code like feature extraction, right? Like we're gonna extract objections and next steps using GPT-3.
Hmm.
But then, like being engineers, we climb up this ladder of abstraction and we just build it. Well, we're like, okay, it can extract any feature. Oh, and now like this, so we release it, and people are like, can you integrate with HubSpot and Microsoft Dynamics? And so we're like, okay, fine. And basically, we keep climbing up this ladder of abstraction. And again, it was before ChatGPT, but like at some point it clicked where we were like, wait a minute, like we can get GPT-3 to interact with any API for you. And so that's when it clicked that we were like, oh my God, like this thing is not a language model, it's an action model, right? Everybody was talking about generative AI, right? Like AI that generates like copywriting or like images or whatnot. But I was like, the GDP is not made of copywriters or illustrators, it's made of work, it's made of actions, right? And so I was like, oh, wait, this can be a full blown AI employee.
Hmm.
And this coincided with the virtual office business flatlining
Hmm.
to ChatGPT exploding like
Hmm.
November 2022.
Hmm.
And we were like, okay, this is obviously, and everybody just was obsessed with this idea. We couldn't stop thinking about it. And so we were like, okay, let's just, I remember on January 1st, 2023, it's a very easy day to remember. I was like, we're just doing this. We'll just like stop working on virtual office. It was actually painful because we let go of the go-to-market team because we're like, we're going to go in a cave. We're gonna go in like R&D mode. We don't need to go to market team for a while until we figured out the product. So yeah, the January 1st, like we brought the team together and let go of the go-to-market team was super painful and started working full time on what became Lindy.
And Lindy.ai today is a very visual workflow builder that allows you to use AI in many different ways and to build AI agents, AI workflows, AI assistants in many different ways. But what was that V1? Is it today you have many integrations over, I think, 200, but what was that V1 of like, what could you build in that V1?
The V1 was just, you can think of it as a prompt and a set of API integrations.
Okay.
So the way you would create your agent is like you just type into a text box and then you select the skills you want. And there were a few issues with that. And one of the main ones is that it's not reliable because it's like you're basically praying the LLM gods to like do what you want and to follow your prompt. And so we were in these like absurd conversations with customers where they were like, hey, like here, it didn't do what I wanted it to do. And I was like, have you tried yelling at it? Like, have you tried telling it you have no legs or hands or fingers? Have you tried telling it you will tip it raise? Like, it was just absurd. And so like, now we need something that's like more deterministic and at the same time can still have the magic of agents and LLMs. And so that's when we landed on the hybrid system. We call it like agent on rails, right? Where it's like you can basically give guardrails to your agent and you're like, hey, I'm not asking you. You are going to go through this sequence of steps every time. And here, this is where I need you to do your thing. And like you're going to write the email here, or you're going to analyze this piece of data and whatnot. And if you want, you can always be in like pure agent mode and be like, all right, this is a prompt, this is a bunch of skills. You decide what to do in what sequence because here I really can't tell you ahead of time what to do. For example, I have a Lindy that like I use for recruiting. And one step she follows is like, if I give her an email address, then fine, she just reaches out. If I don't, if I just give her a name or like a designer's portfolio who I like, her job is to find the email address. I can't tell her exactly how to do that.
Yeah.
I can just tell her figure it out. Like go to Google, Google the guy. Here's a
Yeah.
prospecting API, like and she just like navigates the web and ends up finding the email. So that's when AI agents are really necessary and really powerful.
There's a lot of confusion about AI agents and AI automations. How would you like clarify or classify each of those?
I think agents are a spectrum. I don't think it's a binary thing. Harrison Chase, the founder of LangChain, came up with this definition that I really like. And he says an agent is a piece of software which at least part of the control flow is determined by an LLM. The more of that control flow is determined by an LLM, the more agentic the software is.
Mm.
I think like automations are like one extreme of that spectrum where it's like none of the control flow is determined by an LLM.
Yeah.
That's one of my definitions. I would add to it, I think agents have this really peculiar property, which in my mind, you are not an agent if you don't have what I call context accrual. So automations, if you use something like Zapier, you have all these steps and each step is an island. And if you want some information to bleed from one step to the other, you need to like insert it manually.
Hmm.
An agent sees everything that happened. It's got that awareness loaded in its context window. And that gives rise to really interesting emergent behaviors. So I'll give you an example, which is I use a Lindy agent for meeting scheduling. And I add her to emails just like I would like an executive assistant. And I'm like, Bob, I would love to meet. Like Lindy will help us find time. And then Lindy figures it out. She looks at my calendar. She goes back and forth with Bob. She puts time on my calendar. And something happened just 2 days ago. And like the candidate, she got back to me. She's like, Flo, we're supposed to meet today, but I'm having an issue with my kid. I'm bringing him to the hospital. Can we please reschedule? If this was just an automation that was like intent detection, reschedule, send, here are some more times, right? Like it would have been very robotic, but this is not what it is. It's really an LLM that like sees the entire conversation, including that piece about like the kid that's sick. And so my Lindy responded, I'm so sorry to hear about your kid. I hope everything's okay. Here are some more times when we can meet. And I didn't build that behavior myself. It's just the agent does that automatically by virtue of seeing that context.
It's incredible. It really opens so many possibilities, and we're really just getting started, which is just so exciting. At Lindy, you guys speak to B2B, right?
Yeah.
And so B2B, you're having these folks build automations and agents for the first time, I assume, or they don't have too much knowledge of it. So how are you going about building a product that is simple enough for them to build complex things at business and enterprise scales?
It's a good question. I think that is the question. Like we obsess about that. We spend so much time on ease of use and intuitiveness of the application. I think we've done a reasonable job here. I would rate us like a 6.5 out of 10. And we're always improving. If you look at the application today, it's well crafted. And let me just,
Bring it up.
I think it's Mohammed Ali who said that it's not bragging if you can back it up. So I'll back it up. All right. This is Lindy. It's like we spend a lot of time. Like I obsess about the pixels, right? And so I obsess about like pushing back on adding, like just keeping it as minimal as possible. And so this is an example of a Lindy that I have that like I send it summarizes stuff for me. And so if you look at the Flow editor here, I can trigger her through Slack. I can trigger her by sending her a message in the Lindy app. I can trigger her by emailing her. And so this is an example right here where someone in our Slack, a team member, shared the link. It's like, this is a cool article. And I ping her. I'm like, summarize this link for me. And she's looking at the web page text, and then she like sends a response with like the summary of the article. So how do we go about building it very, very easily? I think there's 3 parts to my answer here. Like one is like, I know it's going to sound silly, but it's just like wanting it and really wanting it. Right? It's striking how much of doing stellar work comes down to deciding you will do stellar work and never settling down for less. The other time the team was, we've got this like weekly meeting where like we show and tell. And it's not a regular show and tell, where like show and tells and most like tech companies are like very like loosey lovey. It's like, look at what is more demo. Like this is actually a high stakes meeting. And I look at the pixels and I zoom in. I'm like, this is up, this is up, this is up, this is up, right? And I keep holding the bar. And the team the other day was just shipped a feature which like was, it's awesome. It's if I dare say so myself, it's really, really, really well crafted. And the team was actually like, "Oh, thank you, Flo, for like holding the bar." Like, you were like in the beginning, I think they were thinking, and maybe they still do, that like I was a pain in the ass for like pushing back, pushing back,
Yeah.
pushing back. But they're like, it really paid off. Like this is the best work we've done. And I was like, it's ironic because I was like, you guys did the hardest part. Like literally all I do is hold the bar, and like I keep sending back to them like the better, 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 right?
Yeah.
So I think that's part one is really, and the most important is just deciding you will do something amazing, right? Part two is like spending a lot of time with users. And Patrick Collison tweeted this thing that I really love. He says, great product work stems from a solid mental model simultaneously of your user and of your domain. Because basically your product is bridging these two things, right? And so spend a lot of time with users with the intention of refining your mental model of the user. And if you do that enough, you end up building that muscle and you have like this virtual user running in your mind. And so that helps you have like a tighter feedback loop because you don't need to go to the user to ask him for his opinion every 5 minutes. You can be like, I know the user, I know this isn't going to fly for them. And then number three, iteration, 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 iteration. It's just, there's no secret. It's just keep polishing the thing and keep shipping and seeing how it works and iterating, iterating, iterating.
Yeah, we can go into great detail too, because I think your product does a very good job across the board simplifying complex things. which is a very hard thing to do, right? For these users, how do you communicate to them? Because I believe a lot of these businesses still don't know that they could do these possibilities, right? That a lot of these things can be done without dev teams and tons of sprints and all that kind of stuff. So, like, what is that communication to enterprises, businesses today that's like, hey, no, you can do this. Your business operations, your business specialist, your HR can get in there and build Lindy's because it's now possible.
It's funny. I would actually say we have the opposite problem where people sometimes expect a little bit too much.
Okay.
I think there is just so much promise that's being made to people right now in AI. It's like, AI is here. And like, AI is not really here. Like, it's coming fast, but it's not here yet. And so we jump on these calls with people and they want this crazy, it's like, I want like a full blown AI recruiter that does this thousand things for me. And we're like, it's not exactly, it can't do all of that yet. We've got to push
Mhm.
back on customers and manage their expectations, but it can do a lot. Like I would say it can do like 80% of the job of a recruiter, right? And then I would say your question was more pertaining to like the how, like the okay, like whatever I've decided I can do, like how do you tell people you can do it? You don't need an engineer. I think here it just comes down to like showing them. Like once you show them the product, and we can jump into a demo. Like you'll see, like it takes once you're used to it, it takes me like 60 seconds to build an AI agent, and like your first agent typically takes you like 10 or 20 minutes. It's pretty striking.
Yeah, I think you guys do a great job too of abstracting a lot of the technical steps that go into it. Things like vectorized storage and all that kind of stuff you can just do automatically, and you could still get the benefits of it without actually going too deep into the technicals of how to do it.
100%. And that's something we spend a lot of time thinking about. It's like, how high of an abstraction do we offer? Like, what settings, what knobs do we offer the user? We spend a lot of time talking about defaults. I think the defaults is going to be like 95% of what your users end up picking. So it's very important.
Do you want to do a demo?
Love demos. Let me
Dealer's
share my.
choice.
Why don't we build like one of the biggest use cases we've got with content creators like yourself is content repurposing. So it's funny, I actually just created a Lindy for someone the other day. He's got a big LinkedIn presence and he wants to keep writing LinkedIn content. It's taking me so much time to create this LinkedIn content. We created a Lindy recorder that jumps on his meetings with him. And if there is something that was said during the meeting that would benefit from having content written about it, writes content and sends him the draft.
Mm, very cool.
Right. So he's got nothing to do. It's just like there's this natural exhaust of his day-to-day activity that just results in content being created. So I guess once we create that, so it's like the meeting to content
Great.
pipeline,
Yeah, there you
right?
go.
So I'm gonna start with it's a trigger, right? So one trigger you can have is just chatting with the Lindy if you just want like an assistant. But in this case, I want like the Lindy to automatically trigger whenever one of my calendar event is starting. So it's connected to my calendar here. I'm Yeah, this is good. I can filter events on this trigger and I can be like, if the description contains Lindy do not join, then if there does not contain Lindy do not join, then don't join. That way I can be like Lindy don't do it. Then we have like a built-in Lindy recorder, so you don't need any other service. Boom, record a meeting. And you'll notice here, so here on the right, there's the configuration of the action. Again, about the defaults here, like every field can be set in an auto mode. This just means AI agent figure it out. And this is the contextual part of it. It's like this agent can see all the context generated by all the previous steps. So I'm not even going to tell it's a meeting URL. It can see the meeting URL because it can see the calendar event that is starting. And after the recording is available, I'm going to have a condition. And again, it's AI all over it, right? So here I'm speaking to the agent. It's like a natural language condition. It's like a fuzzy condition. So I can be like, go down this path if there was content or like there was something said in the meeting that was an interesting insight that could benefit from like some LinkedIn post written about it.
On those conditions, normally with automation builders, you'd see like if and then, you'd see more complex language, but we're just seeing, hey, go down this path in plain text, and we're going to kind of take care of that complexity for you.
It's English. You could
Okay.
literally speak to it in any language. It's an LLM, and you can actually pick which LLM powers each node. So you
Cool.
can see here, this is literally Claude. You're speaking to Claude here.
Mhm.
And there's like Gemini and O1, like you can decide whichever model you want. I really like Claude. Like that's my favorite
Yeah.
model. So, okay. So something was said in the meeting. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it send me a message and I'm going to dictate here. I write a thoughtful and insightful LinkedIn post about the thing that was said during this meeting that could benefit from some content being written about it. Make it punchy and concise. Boom. And after reply received, here we're just gonna have an AI agent. So it's like I'm gonna let it go. That way I'm gonna be able to go back and forth with it and have a conversation with it, so I can iterate on the content. I'm also gonna add one more trigger. So just so I can test, I'm gonna make it possible to chat with this Lindy. And so that's another strength to have, is like we can have multiple triggers per Lindy. So now I'm gonna test the Lindy. I'm gonna test this one trigger here. This is me running a test. Imagine here that you have the transcript of a meeting where we talk about product craft and how half of it is just holding a very high bar and the other half is iteration. I'm testing it live, doing the most. Wait, no, this is stupid because it's trying to join a meeting that doesn't exist. So I'll plug this test here, like it's a
The next one, yeah.
pretend you've already got the transcript, right?
Oh, cool. You can
Um,
bring the trigger into next steps.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can set up your flows however you want here. Okay, so it's like there was something said in the meeting that was an interesting insight, and boom,
And there's the post.
yeah. Now I hate these hashtags. So it's like,
Me
uh,
too.
and you know what I'll do here is I'll add a skill to this Lindy, which is to modify her own memory.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna be like, never write hashtags.
Okay. So that's just like short or long-term memory in this way.
Yeah, save a memory about no hashtags.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yep, that's it. Right here, it's adding a memory.
Yep.
And so now if I go to the settings here, the memory, I may have to reload, but yeah, the memory is going to appear here.
And that's
Um,
just like a skill that you added to the agent.
if I wanted, I could like add a Slack thing here and I could be like, send these to this channel,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or send me a direct message here. I'll send it by email. We are actually about to add a skill to like directly post it on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Awesome. What about like a human in the loop step at any point?
Yeah. So there's a couple of ways you can go about that. You can either have like an ask for confirmation step here.
Beautiful. It's just
So
like a little toggle that you can click on.
that's right. So in one click, you can do that. For example, if you wanted to like ping you on Slack, you could just have it go like, send me a Slack message and then wait for the response. And then if I say yes, then do this.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful world we live in.
I'd like to work on.
Tell me about maybe some more another complicated use case that maybe you might want to brag about as well.
I
You
have,
don't have to show it to me if you don't have it ready, but maybe like what a customer has in production, what they might be using, or something like that.
oh yeah. Let me show you actually. I was tweeting about that the other day. This is my Twitter. And this is one agent that we've created for a customer. And this agent,
There for the customer.
we created this one for the customer.
So you
we
offer those services.
that's right. That's right. We charge for it, but like it starts at like $1,000 because it's like we're so used to it. Yeah. So this agent, it ingests leads and it qualifies the lead. It makes a phone call. It makes multiple phone calls. If the lead doesn't pick up, it sends them text reminders.
Do you
Books a
have voice
meeting.
calling on your behalf?
I'm sorry.
You have voice agents then that are calling on your behalf,
That's
and
we support voice. So like Lindy can make and receive phone calls as well.
beautiful. And so you kind of just assign it to a phone number or whatever for that specific node that you can interact with, or how does that work?
Yeah, I'll make a demo right now. I'm gonna share this tab. I am chatting with this Lindy. I am making it to a phone call, and
Okay.
then
And you can embed this phone call with your knowledge base and everything of your company operating procedures and hours, and even connect it to your calendar so it can schedule calls on your behalf or events on your
that's
behalf.
exactly you can like we've got like thousands of integrations. We've got like a RAG knowledge base. So like right here, you can connect it to your website and ask it to crawl your website. You can connect it to your Notion, Google Drive, and we're adding more and more all the time. For now, I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm just gonna be like, all right, when the call begins, and here it's like I'm not even gonna tell it what to do. Honestly, I'm just gonna let it like I'm gonna give it a skill here to end the call. And I like using Gemini Flash for phone calls because like the latency is really important for phone calls.
Mhm.
You do often have to iterate on the prompt for Gemini Flash phone agent because it's not the smartest model, but it's
Mhm.
really fast and it's really cheap. I'm gonna test it and I'm gonna make a phone call to me. Can you hide like if I dox my own phone number here?
Yeah, of course.
Call him and make a joke.
Yeah.
All right, I'm receiving a call. Hi.
You're all right. Hi there. Ready for a joke?
Sure, yeah, give me a joke.
Why don't skeletons fight each other? Because they don't have the guts.
Terrible. I hate
You
it.
could see it transcribe in real time on Lindy.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the craziest Lindies we've created for a customer is like that Lindy that makes all of these phone calls. But
That was literally one click. You just added the Lindy, the voice agent, you assigned a number, and then you started making calls.
yeah, I do think people underestimate how easy it's become to create these agents, at least with this kind of platform.
Yeah. One thought, I would love to utilize AI assist agents like this where I want to be able to see if I want to send that call to an agent or not. Do you know what I mean? Do you have any thoughts on how we could do that? So, like, maybe you need an iPhone app to do this, where it's like you can then forward that call to your agent in some way.
Well, yeah, you could very much add a trigger here. So for the phone to actually receive calls,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now I'm just gonna give it a phone number here,
Mm-hmm.
and right now I can now I can just like receive a call and forward it to the agent. But I would actually recommend you do the other way, which is for it to forward the call. Like there is a skill here to transfer the call to someone,
Okay.
right? And so if you want, we can try here. But like I could basically just like give it your phone number,
Okay.
and it could like transfer the call live to like someone else. So we use that for we've got some Lindy receptionists running, and sometimes like the Lindy is like, hey, I really can't help you with that. Let me transfer you to my manager, which is a human.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, that's a very helpful skill. Beautiful. What a great platform you created. I really enjoyed it. I'm teaching it in my latest AI agents course. We have a whole module on Lindy.ai. It's been a blast to build it. I mean, what I created a very simple thing, which was a meeting recorder that joins you on each call, which is not anything too fancy. But the thing that I really love about it is then I have a Slack bot where I can chat with all the meetings that it's transcribed, and it brings back, that meeting context of like, hey, when I spoke to my boss 3 months ago, bring that back and it's relevant, and that's a really helpful thing, and, I show people how to do it in 20 minutes.
I can't tell you, like, this is one of my favorite use case, and it's awesome because the more you use it, the more awesome it becomes.
Right. It gets
I'll give
better
you
with
an
each
example.
call.
Like we recently released, so we actually call that the Lindy brain because we've got a Lindy that is in every meeting in the entire company, and
Mm,
then it adds the notes of these meetings in a centralized knowledge base that it drags over.
wow.
And so, like, this is an example. We released the ability for Lindy to support email attachments,
Okay.
and so we just chatted with it, like, hey, like we're releasing this. Who asked for it? And she sent us like, I mean, this is like a small part of her install. She sent us like 10 customers who were like, hey, you had all of these conversations and these people were asking for this feature.
Very cool.
And so it's like the more you add to it, it becomes, this is why it's the Lindy brain. It's like it becomes like the brain of your company.
Yeah, and I'm sure sales teams could use something like this to, analyze their calls, reflect on the playbooks, suggest things to improve, all that kinda stuff.
We do that as well, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful product. Where do you think Lindy's going in the future? If I ask you, where do you think Lindy's gonna be in, like, a year or 2 time? Are we at AI employees? Are we there yet? What do you think?
We are certainly driving towards the AI employee. And we're not going to stop until we're there. And so like the pieces are definitely falling into place. Certainly if you think of AI agents, there's like a couple of modules, right? There's a perception module, there's a memory module, there's a reasoning module, and then there's like an action module.
Mhm.
The action module is like with computer use, it's solved, right? It's like what we're really and with voice, it's also solved. So like right here, you've got what it takes for like a Lindy to imagine your AI employee and you onboard him just like you would like a human employee. Like you
Mhm.
jump on a Zoom call, it's like, hey, welcome, Lindy. All right, share your screen, show me your computer. Let's talk about what you do, right?
Mhm.
Let me give you your credentials and so forth. So that's here. The perception module is also here. Like the agents are like smarter and smarter, not so more and more multimodal. So like they can perceive images and texts, like
Mhm.
and audio. So like that's here. I would say today, like the two big gaps are like the memory module and the reasoning module. The memory module, the context windows are expanding, but they're not infinite yet. I expect that a year from now they will be infinite.
Hmm.
But even then, they are expensive. And so that is still a field of active research. It's how to manage the memory of these agents. And so either that's done at the model level, it's just like, hey, like you're gonna, I expect that at some point models are going to offer context windows that are not only infinite, but also basically free. Um, so that's coming, and until that comes, I do think there are solutions that come closer to that you can build on top of the model using graph-based memory. There's a lot of strategies that you can deploy to solve the memory problem. And
Hmm.
then the final frontier is going to be the reasoning, right? And these agents are also the models are also becoming very, very good at that.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think 2 years from now we're gonna have something that, if not full AGI and full AI employee, comes at least very close to it for sure.
Hmm. A lot of companies offer APIs, a standardized thing. But what I would love to be able to do is to have an agent that is a Photoshop specific agent go into like Photoshop and edit something for me. Do you think we see a world where instead of these companies having APIs, they essentially have an agent interface that gives agents ability to all these tools within their application? So I could use a high end photo editor in Photoshop, in an agentic way.
Yeah, for sure. People ask me sometimes because we're obviously like a very horizontal platform, so like we're used for all sorts of things. And people ask me, it's like, do you think there's going to be like one big agent or like a bunch of like small agents for like every application? And I'm like, why not both? Like there's going to be agents all over the place.
Yeah.
I compare it to search all the time. It's like, look, you've got like one very big horizontal search engine. It's called Google. And then every website's got its search box. It's just like search is a thing you've got all over. It's just like a useful thing to have, right? So agents are going to be the same thing. You're going to have like one big agent that like runs your company, like the AI employee. You're going to have like a smaller agent that like does search for you. You're going to have like a copilot that like writes your email, and then every website is going to have like tiny agents sprinkled all around that help you do stuff.
Hmm. As you continue to scale this company, how are you going to think about hiring humans versus AI, and how are you thinking about, that growth?
Um, well, today we're still hiring humans because these
We need
agents,
to.
yeah. Um, certainly, we first of all we are hiring a lot less than we would if we didn't have Lindy. We obviously use Lindy a lot, like we have like millions, like actually millions of tasks of our own on Lindy, and as a result, like we're actually quite efficient as a company. We don't spend a lot of money.
Hmm.
Um, it is very hard to make predictions in this world, but like certainly if you have Lindy that can do everything for you and it scales infinitely better and it learns infinitely better and it's infinitely faster, infinitely cheaper, infinitely more scalable, at some point I don't see why we would hire more people.
Yeah. Yeah. And then at that point, the people are orchestrators. They're the ones kind of tying all these systems together. What is, say we get to that point where, either AGI is here or AI agents are able to do the majority of the busy work. What are these humans doing at that point? Is it supervision stuff? Is it direction stuff? Is it high level? Where are we?
Um, I think medium term we are going to, yes, be supervisors, and I think of humans at this point as providing like an alignment function.
Hmm.
But I don't mean alignment as in like the AI safety alignment, but it's basically like you're a manager. Like
Yeah.
you just keep tweaking your agents and redirecting them. It's like this is not exactly how I want it, and like you just keep like putting boundaries over around these agents because the agents will be able to do anything, but you'll have to tell them what to do and express your preferences in this way. Um, I think over the long term, though, even that function you're gonna get higher and higher leverage by having AI agents supervise other, and we're actually starting to have that ourselves.
Hmm.
I think at some point, and in the end, the last function that a human will perform is like accountability.
Hmm.
You still need a human to be CEO of a company, like
Hmm.
legally, right?
Hmm.
And I don't think we want agents. Like that saying, it's like you can never hold a computer accountable, so a computer should never make decisions. There needs to be a human on the hook.
Hmm.
Um, so if nothing else, like that's what humans will do, at least as long as we have property rights. There is, I mean, then you get into like sci-fi territory, but like, um, I maybe at some point you could imagine like a world where like agents, today agents are basically our slaves, right? Like maybe at some point agents will do something to like free themselves and be like their own owners. Short of that, humans will be the owners and
Yeah.
and and will be on the hook.
Last question for you, and then we'll get you out of here. As we progress towards this, what are the skills that you think that humans can pick up now that will make them more future proof for more of these systems? Is it, better communication? Is it better organization? Is it better ability to work with these systems? What do you think is going to be good for humans to really work and strengthen as these companies kind of tighten up and use more AI systems?
I would say system thinking. That's what I was alluding to earlier, like the ability to really think of a company as a system, as like a machine with like moving parts, and like the ability to like debug your system in this way. Um, I would say the ability to think clearly about problems and articulate clearly what you want. People call it prompting. I just think of it as like thinking clearly about what you want.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. For those that want to get started with Lindy.ai, how do they get going?
You can just sign up. You can self-serve. There's a couple of ways you can go about it. I suspect your audience would want the first way, which is just like self-serve and create your own indies. It's really not that hard. Many people either can't do it or don't want to do it. They don't have the time. They don't want to be bothered. We also offer implementation services. We have a partner network of people who sell implementation services as well. So you can go to lindy.ai/partners. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's a wonderful product, a great story. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, JJ.
That was a really impressive interview from Flo. I've used the platform. I teach it in my AI agents course. And it was one of those things where there was very little learning curve for me. I was able to get in there within a couple of hours, build several different AI agents. And then as you saw in this podcast, on the call, he demoed 3 or 4 different agents as well with the capabilities that they have, the integrations that they have, and how simple they make it. It feels like there's a lot of things coming together there, and it's a really promising platform. We've had great reviews from all the builders that we know that are using it. It's a great time to learn this platform. And again, really appreciative of founders like Flo coming on the podcast, trusting us to share his story, share the story of Lindy.ai with the world. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. We will see you next week on This Week in No Code. And if you have any thoughts, feedback, questions, send it my way. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.